let's go right into the metabolic typing assessment and that whole topic. Because I know for me, oftentimes I learned about metabolism just as kind of like metabolism is this just kind of this thing where all of us have a similar way with how our metabolism works. When it comes to metabolic typing assessment, what exactly, let's just start high level. What exactly does that mean? And do people have different types of metabolisms, or what exactly are you going to learn when you do a metabolic typing assessment?
Yeah, first of all, thanks so much for having me here. And the metabolic typing diet really cues in on people's bio-individuality, meaning we're all different and have different needs. And that's one reason I like to use that because it takes into account ancestral heritage. So kind of, where your genetics kind of came from. Because if you think about people living closer to the poles versus closer to the equator, the food sources available are quite different. So people living closer to the poles are going to be more adapted for higher fat, higher protein type of meals, and people closer to the equator are going to have more abundance of carbohydrate rich foods. So that's one aspect, but then also your current patterns, whether you're in homeostasis or balance or out of it, that's also going to impact your body's needs for certain foods to get you into balance or to keep you into balance. So it's kind of a combination, and it's balancing out your oxidative speed, like how quickly you burn through foods, meaning are you a fast oxidizer, moderate, or slow? As well as the nervous system. You've got the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system, kind of fight or flight or rest and digest. And then those kind of weigh out with each other. And then within each of those, there's a fast or slow oxidizer, parasympathetic or sympathetic. So, for example, I was one of those people who grew up in the 90s. Low fat, no fat was the motto, and we would completely skip the avocado because it was high fat, right? And they're like, oh, but you can go nuts with the loaf of white bread that, from a nutrient standpoint, has nothing, but from a macro standpoint alone, it's low fat. Great, that's what we're going for.
Yeah.
So I would eat like cereal and breads and jams and like salads with like no fat on it just because well that's what you're supposed to do and you end up basically avoiding all fat soluble nutrients which are essential for your whole body. And I found myself in a state of energy, well, probably like deficit overall, but then also imbalance because it was so carb heavy, especially processed carb heavy, the way I ate back in the day, that you get that surge of sugar and then it would drop. And so an hour, 90 minutes later, I'd be like kind of, ooh, what are we gonna eat now? Like,
Yeah.
or what do we have with us? Like, what's the option? You almost get anxious about it. And I didn't understand it at the time that that was blood sugar spikes and drops, spikes and drops. And I was like really good at following rules because I was disciplined. That's what they said to do, and I was doing it. And energy levels were completely unstable, and then hormones also got completely out of whack. And fast forward a couple decades, I've since found out I am more on that fast oxidizer side of the spectrum, meaning I burn through things a little bit more quickly. So if you have only carbohydrates and you burn through them quickly, you're now feeling like you need something more. You get hangry. You have, you're just irritable. Your blood sugar's low. You might get dizzy upon standing. Some of those symptoms. You're just not your best mental focus. Emotional well-being is not in the right spot.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and interject here. So I want to go back to this. Um, you said that oftentimes your metabolic type can be influenced by your ancestral heritage. Is maybe just one of the things that can influence your metabolic type, like where they lived, whether they're closer to the poles or closer to the equators. Now we're talking about fast oxidizers versus slow oxidizers. When you say realize that you're more of a fast oxidizer, like what does that actually mean biologically? Like what does that actually mean in terms of like, energy production? Is there something different that's going on in your cell, at the cellular level, or like what's going on that actually makes you a fast oxidizer?
So you have whatever your food source is, you're burning through it. Your body's using it up more quickly, is
Okay.
like the simplest answer. So somebody who is a fat oxidizer needs slower burning food sources at a higher amount, like fats and proteins are a little bit slower than like if you went straight bread fruit. You kind of have that sense of all carbs, very little fat, protein is like a spike drop. Whereas you hear people talking about modulating the blood sugar curve by pairing it with fats or proteins. That slows the rate at which you're kind of going through that energy.
And so one of the when what, like when you first say that, and I think a lot of people are going to think this too. Like when you first say fast oxidizer, you burn through energy really quickly. A lot of people are like, "Man, I want to be a fast oxidizer. I want to I want to burn through calories pretty quickly." And so does fast oxidizer translate to somebody who can more easily stay lean? Like is that like a good versus bad thing or no?
No, great question. It's more about finding the food ratios, the ratios, carbohydrates, proteins, fats that work best for you. Because when you're getting the right balance for your body, that's when your body gets the nutrients it needs from that to act on the cellular level to do the actions that you need to do. Because what happens if you're a fast oxidizer in search of a little bit more protein fat and your meal has more carbohydrates, that's where you get into the issue of over consuming excess energy. So,
Mm.
we've all heard the calories in versus calories out equation. It's not inaccurate, it's just incomplete. It doesn't take into account hormones, right? And so, if your body's looking for certain nutrients,